Yeah.
No, that's not science.
No.
That's not even pseudoscience. It's just bullshit. All right, welcome everybody. Today I have Dustin Nemos, who identifies as the end time sage. I forgot the third word already. Sage.
End times sage edgelord.
All right, whatever that means. Dustin's going to talk to us. Maybe many of you will know him from being on the Jeranism debate with Jeffrey Dougherty and other places. And I've been in touch with Justin for several years. So we decided to have a little conversation about his view of what the heck is going on. So Dustin, take it away.
Yeah. Well, the agenda, I want to speak to the agenda, but I'm not going to necessarily go at this too hard from a religious angle, although I do think that there is a religious agenda, and I want to explain that from a biblical and an atheist perspective. I was a lifelong atheist, so I don't want people to think that I'm like pushing any religion or anything. I want to stick to facts and history here. I started out as a journalist and a reporter exposing like the deep state and the fake news. And I just sort of continued down that rabbit hole and down those conspiracy veins. And I sort of researched almost every angle you can come across, all the rabbit holes you can go down just about. And I come across flat earth, basically the last thing, because I thought it was ridiculous. I thought it was stupid. I was focused on human trafficking, child trafficking, poisons being administered without any sort of informed consent, and all sorts of election fraud and things. So I thought it was ridiculous and a distraction. And then I realized, wow, this is real. This is the big item. This is the biggest issue of all.
We all have the same story. We're all the same thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So you guys can relate to that. And then, from there, I sort of started to follow, okay, which God is that? And I sort of went down the Christian Hebrew route because of the prophecies and miracles and such. But basically, I want to talk more about like the enemy, so to speak, of the Hebrew Bible. And I've said this for a long time, like the deep state is satanic, whether you're atheist, Buddhist, Christian, Jewish, whatever. The deep state is satanic. And they actually have a religion. They have religious books and agendas and written documents. They've been caught numerous times in their plans and conspiracies. And this conspiracy has been going on for a long time. And a lot of people know that intuitively. But when you start trying to prove that, it gets tricky. And I went down that rabbit hole. I went down the prove that conspiracy rabbit hole, and I did. So the results that I came across basically show me that when we get into the modern agenda behind the globe Earth, the flat Earth, the conspiracy, the agenda with NASA and all the other NASA equivalents, the symbolism is a forked tongue of a serpent speaking through a flat disc, virtually the same on all of them. So why is that? It's because, again, and all of the names of these things that they put, the missions, the satellites, the capsules, they're all named after false gods and such. So there's this sort of pagan vein. There's an agenda, but we can't sort of divine that because we don't know what their inner workings are. So basically, my research has shown, and I can prove, that Rome invented a strategy called learning against learning, which is basically fake news and science. And they did this in response to the Reformation. Basically, the short version here is that they were losing power, political power, because of a loss in faith of not in the Bible, but in the Catholic government. People were actually reading the Bible for the first time and breaking away from the Roman government, Catholicism. And that was a big issue for them. There was a war. Spain tried to invade Britain over this. Luther was constantly like fighting back against them. And that was a whole political to-do, and we don't have to go into that. But there was a loss of power. And it was because people were reading the Bible and saying, well, this globe earth thing can't be real, among other things. I mean, you had famous folks like Luther quoted as saying virtually things like, and I'm going off memory here, but does not the scripture say Joshua bid the sun to stand still and not the earth?
Let me
how they were. Yeah.
Let me jump in for a second. When I was exploring different religions and faiths and stuff as a young kid, everyone, I live in a very Christian community, and I went to we had a thing called Young Life here, and it was basically like a fun little Bible study thing. And I did it because I just wanted to be sociable and, go on these cool trips and stuff. And when they were reading the Bible, the first thing they read was that the stars fell to the earth, one of whatever passage that was. And I'm like, this is a joke. This is a star would eat the earth. A star is a million billion times bigger than the earth. And I discounted everything in the Bible from there forward, from that one verse until 2014. How's that?
Yeah, and that's why they did this learning against learning strategy that was papal approved under Cardinal Wolsey, because they wanted to break faith in God, because the faith in God was breaking their political power. You know, like it, love it, hate Christians, love Christians, whatever. This is the history. And then basically the Reformation destroyed Rome's power over world governments. Now, from that time on, it's been more of a shame game than an open murder campaign, because they were just killing people for translating and reading the Bible in those days. They would burn them and hang them with their Bible tied around their neck. But from that time on, with the printing press and Tyndale and later the KJV based on the Tyndale, you basically couldn't kill them fast enough. You had a printing press now. It's kind of like the internet. It's out there. You can't stop it. Cardinal Wolsey came up with learning against learning. And from that point on, we have all of these occultist sciences like Newton and Galileo and Kepler and Copernicus outright stealing their ideas from texts like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth or Hermes for things like gravity or the rotations of celestial spheres, which is basically our cosmology today. So all of this cosmology that we're being force-fed in order to deceive us away from an actual creator is coming from pagan religious texts that go back thousands of years, like the Emerald Tablets of Hermes or Thoth, which is where Newton got gravity from in the first place. And also Newton, as you probably already know, did not obviously support the notion of gravity, but these guys were all in on it.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that these guys all existed, or could they just be made up stories for our timeline? Because, you know, Galileo with his hand polished glass, you know, bamboo shoot telescope could see more detail on Mars than we can with the biggest telescopes we have today. So you think it's just a made up story? Like some of these, like I believe Eratosthenes was a mathematician. I don't believe he did his little magic trick. But I don't have any evidence that these guys ever existed. They might have. I don't know. What do you think?
So they may have been some sort of like creation that became popular, such like we have in TV today with these sort of characters that we fall in love with that can be voiced by anyone. Like kids' cartoons, for example. Everybody knows Ninja Turtles. I mean, they've got like 50 different actors voicing those guys by now, but it's the same face, kind of, you know. So you grow up with it and you get to learn and love it and such. So you could have sort of an ancient form of that effect where they're just sort of constantly putting out news of the celebrity that doesn't exist. But as I see it, the celebrity like Galileo existed and basically was used in a psyop against the public, pretending that he was a heretic when he wasn't and was not treated like a heretic. He was given a cushy retirement, not burnt at the stake. And his so-called heresy was basically the cosmology that we hold today. And he basically recanted on it. But this was allowing the Reformation to see a fellow persecuted person being attacked by the church. And then they loved him and trusted him for it. And then they believed his bullshit. That's basically what happened with Galileo, whether he was real or not. That's what the public perception was.
That's the story. It's a cool story. Yeah. He may be real. He may not. I don't know. I have no evidence. I wasn't there. So
yeah, they fake history. They fake whole history books. I mean, this is what we're talking about right now. They're faking history as we go.
You know how have you seen those the images like from the 1800s and they're like, look, this guy looks just like Eddie Murphy and this guy looks just like Nicolas Cage. And have you seen those pictures? And so the default position is that they're cloned or they're reincarnated or whatever, rather than maybe that is Eddie Murphy and maybe that is him and they're just faking old pictures, because I don't believe any of the old pictures. I found out that all of the Civil War pictures of all of the war came from one family. And if you look at them, they're photo manipulated. I mean, they had Photoshop back then, believe it or not, whatever it was called. So the manipulation.
I believe,
yeah,
absolutely. All the wars, all the major timeline events, everything has been manipulated. We're in a war. I believe we're in a war with the actual Genesis 3:15 and Genesis 6 children of Satan. I think that's our deep state. But you know, that goes to the agenda. But even if it's just a group of bad guys with a satanic belief system, then that's fine. We still have their their own religious documents, their own historical documents, their own evidence, and we can pin them on this topic. They faked a globe to stop God from spreading.
Right.
And the rest of it as well: evolution, carbon dating, climate change. All of this nonsense is either anti-life or anti-God at its root core belief system, and that's why the agenda really.
When people say why would they lie, that is the best question. It's not it's the most important question, and it's the one that really explains it all. Because if you have a group of people that know there's a God and they're living in God's world in nature, then they're not living in the fake world. So they created a fake world, a fake globe. They created, the whole birth certificate, straw man, the entire thing, to make people live in this fake world. That way they can control them. Because if we live under God, under God's law, God's rule, natural law, whatever you want to call it, you're not controllable by those entities. And the way they get away with it is, in my opinion, is this world is way more, for lack of a better word, magical than people realize. That the way we think helps create our reality. And if they have us thinking all of these bad things, these horrible things, if we're listening to a drug commercial on television, and the side effects include rectal bleeding, death, heart explosion, brain, stroke. That's programming your cells. That's just giving you fear. It's just putting fear and dis-ease inside your body. So again, I guess what I'm trying to say is we need to ignore their system and understand why they're doing it, understand we're in a spiritual war, and then create a new system, and then they just fade away.
Yeah. Well, we could. And if you fear God, then you won't fear man nearly as much, and you'll have more power to act bravely in this world.
Do you need to fear God? Do you need to fear God? Like, I don't fear God.
It's more like, if you fear man's punishment, then they can use that to control you. But if you ultimately fear a greater authority, blessing or curse, punishment or judgment, punishment or blessing, then you're basically acting in a different way. I mean, if you're a true believer in God who judges you at the end and who is a just God, then you're basically immune to fear.
Yeah. So I don't fear God. I respect God and honor God. And I have
reverence.
I have all of that. I have zero fear. If I started being a shitty person and doing shitty things, okay, then I might fear God, but I don't. So I'm not in fear.
Well, there's a lot of those out there.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people out there. It's amazing. I just feel so bad for them, but I'm not going to even lower myself to do that.
But basically, the Roman anti-religious, anti-Christian at least, Catholic Church weaponized fake news and science after the Reformation in order to maintain power by ironically destroying faith in God. Since the Reformation and the printing of English Bibles via the printing press and availability to the masses for the first time was destroying the Roman government's deadly monopoly on God and exposing its anti-Christic rituals and doctrines, as well as its hypocrisies for we the people to see. The Reformation was destroying the deep state's power over world religion, a power enforced by murdering everyone who dared read the Bible for themselves or translate it for others during what we now call the Dark Ages. But people no longer needed a middleman now to connect with God. And that's basically what the Reformation was. It was a personal relationship with God, is what people use the expression these days, without a middleman. But the church had to act, so they used their Jesuit priest scientists like Newton and Galileo to deceive the world using psyops into thinking the Bible was inaccurate because of evolution and heliocentrism and globism. Ancient, time, deep time, we call it, which it's not. There's no deep time. That's a whole different aspect of what I call biblical Earth. Most people are saying flat or true Earth, but it's also young. It's also not moving. It's geocentric, level Earth,
level Earth.
Yeah, it's stationary, all that. So so there's so much more to it than just flat. So I want people to remember that. But this war has been going on for a long time between faith in this narrative of the Bible and faith in this narrative of science. And you're seeing it really sort of come to a final culmination today when fundamentalists are the ones who are being targeted by the scientific crowd with all the ridicule and such. Even though I'm happy to debate any of the science crowd, I'm sure you are as well. on any of these issues that they call fundamentalism, like a belief in a flat earth. That's a fundamental belief system. I mean, you're a fundamentalist, if you're a Christian or Muslim or Jew or whatever. If you believe that, you're a fundamentalist, and they're not going to like you for that. So that is the enemy, that and Western independent culture today is what's under attack.
I hear you.
So, going into, we could go down the specifics of like certain scientists. We could go into the details of like Newton and tear apart the gravity and such. But what I really like to talk about is how this all goes back to a much more ancient source. All of this stuff, basically, when they got it, came from mostly the Medici Library and underneath the Vatican. And it was kind of like the Rome's favorites could be allowed to go there, and all the cardinals and popes were obsessed with all these occult writings and such, like Gnosticism and all that came out of there too. But that all came from something much more ancient, which was around the time, the post and pre-flood time of what we call Sumerian, Babylonian, but pre-flood, I call it, and many call it Atlantean. And that was right before the time of Noah, the time of Babylon, and the time of Sumeria. You basically have the time of Atlantis, back when there were still giants and Nephilim all over the place ruling the world. And in that time, you had this worship system of the fallen angels of Genesis 6. And that's where you get pretty much all of this occult stuff that either survived on rock form or came back in the post-flood world under the world religion, by the way, one world religion and one world government of King Nimrod, who we now call Baal or Moloch or Melkart or whatever. He has many names because of the Tower of Babel incident. So this guy basically brought back the witchcraft religion of the anti-God fallen angels. And that is where all of these Roman Gnostic or pagan viewpoints originate. So when they're worshiping the orbs and when they're reading these books written by Thoth or Hermes or whatever, they're actually going back to the pre-flood world, to the fallen rebel angels religion started by them, which the Freemasons claim and admit was passed down through their initiates, through the secret societies, all the way down till today. So you have this war of not just Rome, but the secret societies with Rome. Even though they pretend to be enemies, they worship the same source. The god of Freemasonry is Nimrod. They use different names for him as well, but they admit this at the higher levels. And they also admit, by the way, I don't want to pick on Freemasons, they admit that they lie to the low-level Freemasons, that everything below the 32nd level is a lie. They're deceiving you on purpose. That's part of the religion. And it is a religion. They have an altar and a book in every city in the world almost. So, I just want to point out that there is a pattern here that's established in the pre-flood world against the Hebrew biblical God that continues on today to the modern deep state that explains everything, not just globe Earth, but the evolution, the anti-life science, the control science, the, I don't want to, the quaxine science. I don't know if I say that and get banned on whatever platforms you're going to upload on. But all of the bad things that are happening today, all of the bad things, it goes back to the deep state's religion. And that deep state religion has been the same thing since the pre-flood world. And it's an anti-life, anti-God, and anti-human system. And, different topic. Different
they love us. They want us all healthy and happy and living to our full potential.
They want to corrupt the code. They want to destroy the human genome. And they started out in the pre-flood world.
I think we're there.
and like the days of Noah. I mean, Jesus said, as in the days of Noah, so would the end times be. And like in the days of Noah, flesh is becoming corrupted. That's why the flood came. Noah was saved because he was pure in his genes or generations in Bible talk. So, we had a pure blood Noah leading into a pure blood humanity, sort of saved from a all flesh corrupted world. And then you had this giants strain of different tribes basically murdering mankind and trying to eat them and enslave them the rest of time. And they just kept getting smaller. But now you have a deep state that is made up of the Nephilim, who worship their fathers, which we call Satan, the adversary today. And that is the deep state, whether you're Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, whatever. I think Muslims will probably agree, and most people would agree the deep state's pretty darn evil. But this explains why for everything, every question.
How do you come to that determination that the deep state is who you say?
Okay, so I basically, when I started to learn about how bad the human trafficking issue was. And I started to see some of the stuff that came out about child trafficking, and it really like tore my heart. And it took me a long time to even come to terms with this stuff. And I was reporting on it and trying to fight back against it. And the fake news, of course, won't touch this stuff. It's a massive, massive thing that's happening, industrial levels of child trafficking and other evils in our world today. So why? I wanted to understand it. So for a long time, I thought that, some of this high level elite child sacrifice stuff was fake. And I looked into it. It's not fake. And then I thought for a long time that it was some sort of mafia, sort of like mutually assured destruction. Like the mafia will go out together with a new recruit and they'll kill somebody together so that they're all a murderer. So why rat? You're going down too. That's the logic. So it's sort of how they trust each other in the underworld. And for a long time, I thought the Epsteins of the world, that's got to be why they're doing it. But why do they have a temple? Why do they have a temple underground with all of the religious stuff on Epstein Island and all of these other places? Why Bohemian Grove with the giant statue of Moloch representing Nimrod, with all of our world leaders gathering in front of it? So I wanted to understand the system.
That's good evidence right there. You got me. I'm sold.
Followed it. I followed it down. And it turns out they are indeed satanic. All of these different religious systems are pagan traditions, are actually going back to the giants. They worship the giants and the fallen angels, which many religions call the wisdom serpents. They all have the same story, though.
The Bohemian Grove has a giant statue of Moloch, the owl. And when you look at the aerial view of Washington, D.C., isn't the White House Moloch?
Yeah.
The whole landscaping? And then you look at the Vatican, it's a freaking snake. I mean, there's no doubt it's literally a serpent. And NASA, with all of their symbolism. Yeah. There's
by their symbols, by their fruit, you'll know them. Yeah. But they also invented, when God babbled the languages, according to Oscar Waite, the 33rd Freemason, they actually had to invent something called the language of symbols. This is why we see all of the symbolism and such today going back to evil. And you can point it out all over the place, from Google Chrome 666 to the stuff that you just pointed out. They love their symbolism. They love to show off in plain sight. And now people have figured out how to read it.
Do you know what the Google's browser was before it was called Chrome?
Adreno or something. They had an Adreno.
Adreno.
Yeah. So, Adreno. New. The Bible talks about it. It's been going on for a long time.
Let's try not to say that. Try not to say that word again. Just we'll call it adrenaline.
Well, okay, adrenaline. Basically, that has been talked about throughout historical documentation, including scripture, for thousands of years. It's been going on since the beginning. The Bible talks about it, but the Romans also talked about what they found at Carthage with the Phoenicians and what they were doing to their own children, burning them to statues of Moloch, etc. This has been going on for a long time. We get the word cannibal from the Canaanite priests, the giants, the Canaanite seed of the serpent priests of Baal, who would sacrifice the babies to Baal and then eat the flesh after they had burnt them alive and spilt the blood. So Canaanite priests, cannibals, would eat the flesh. There's so much darkness in this world that people don't know about, but it is consistent. It is discoverable. It is testable. People can test these things. I don't want people to just trust me by any means. I mean, giants existed. We find the bones, just like it's hard to believe the world is flat. Well, giants are real. There's a lot of evidence for that. So we had a seed of the serpent at war with mankind, and that follows in through, like I was saying, into the modern deep state. I'm happy to be challenged or test any of these ideas that I'm throwing at you. Feel free to challenge me on them.
No, I'm agreeing with most of what you're saying right now. And the way they get away with this, you said two things. You said that the amount of evil is just almost incomprehensible. And at the beginning, you said that you just couldn't believe, right? And most people are in most normies will say, and even many, many, many truthers are in a place where they say, I can't believe that, Hillary eats children, okay, or whatever you want to say, and that's because you're basically casting a spell on yourself. You can't believe so now you can't see something that's happening, and most people, I'd say almost everybody, unless for when you're born, you're pure, you have a pure heart. We are pure people. We want to trust. Like, I want to trust everybody. Basically, everyone with me gets the benefit of the doubt. You are trustworthy until you burn me. Then you burn me, and then you're banned for life. And so So if you don't believe that there can be this much evil, you can't see it. And that's how they've gotten as far as they've gotten. But now, we're in the middle of the quote unquote apocalypse, the unveiling of everything. Everything is becoming visible. People are starting to see. And as soon as enough people see and start, taking their energy elsewhere, everything changes.
I agree. I believe in prophecy. I think it's 100% accurate with fine detail across thousands of years when it comes to the Bible, not other religions. But I think that there's some bad things coming, but I also think that they have gone too far at this point. They're not going to win back trust in the globe earth model. They're not going to win back trust in the healthcare system or the political system or the fake news system or the religious system. I mean, all systems are failing right now, and they're moving to kill us as quickly as they can and move us into poverty and famine so that we're controllable easily. But the cat is out of the bag. It's too late. People are waking up and rebelling and turning against the narrative at all levels, from the house mom to the warrior in society. It's all happening at once. So I think that, we are, and I hate to say it again, a great awakening.
We certainly are. I don't know if you saw a video that just was featured on the app, and it's on my channel, about Laura Nina. Did you see her? She did a speech. She did I don't know, it's like a 5 or 8 minute rant on why they're lying and how they're hiding God. And it's probably the best, well said, that I've seen. So I made a cool video out of it, and I'll probably add it to the end of our video here. So after this, cool. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to splice it onto the end. And I encourage people to watch it again and again and again and again until you can recite it.
I would love to see that. Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah. So, if you have any questions specifically, we basically covered from the beginning of time till the end here, in terms of this war that's going on. And in the last 500 years, really, the fake science since Cardinal Wolsey has really ramped up in response to the Reformation and people reading the Bible.
Let's talk about the fake science for a second, and then I have a prophecy question. Science, the definition of science is, when you can observe, test, repeat, measure, test, and repeat. That's actual science. And they've turned science into religion. They use pseudoscience, but because their name of what they do, they call science, everyone assumes, oh, that's, religion's religion. That's all, crazy. But science is science. They don't use science. Flat earthers use science. We use globe science to show them there is no globe. But because when someone hears the word science, they're programmed. Science is real. Science is the truth. But are you really using science when you say, Neil deGrasse Tyson? What did he say the other day? He said, we launched a rocket and on a spinning Earth and with a spinning atmosphere, and then we went millions of miles away to an asteroid that was traveling at a speed, and it landed, it touched down, it grabbed some dirt, and then it took off and reoriented itself and landed on a spot in the middle of a desert somewhere where they had planned from the beginning. And he goes, that's science. And now what that is, that's bullshit. That is complete and total fake bullshit story. But because they animated it and they told you the story and they showed you a handful of dirt or a thimble full of dirt, that's science.
Yeah.
No, that's not science. That's not even pseudoscience. It's just bullshit.
Fewer than 1%.
I may even put that clip in here too if I don't get it.
It's good. Yeah, it was a good.
We launched a spacecraft 7 years ago from Earth, a moving platform, towards the asteroid Bennu, a moving target. We arrive there. It does a touch and go, grabbing material on that touch. It packs it into a capsule. That space probe continues, intersects Earth, deploys the capsule such that on the rotating Earth, it lands within a zone in the Utah desert. And that spacecraft continues on to another asteroid.
And that's what it is programmed to do. It's behaving as we intended for.
It's called science. As a matter of fact, it is rocket science. But we did this. We pulled this off. Yet there are people walking among us saying, I don't believe science. I don't trust science. Do you see what it is we do? Do you have any understanding of what this takes?
Yeah.
No, that's not science. That's not even pseudoscience. It's just bullshit.
Fewer than 1% of their scientific papers in the journals actually use the scientific method. I mean, they just like to bully everybody on it, but we love the debates. I mean, they don't love the debates. It kind of shows. And in essence, I mean, it's important to understand. I think the easiest fact to get across to normies is that 95% or more of science, so-called, is government funded. That's worse than fake news. So
100%.
I mean, where is the money coming from? Follow the money. Scientists that are honest will tell you this. It's all out there for anyone to find out. But if you want to be successful as a so-called scientist in this world, you have to basically toe the line with pro-evolution, pro-climate change nonsense in order to get funding by the governments of the world.
So again, they have control of the money. We need their money to function in their fake world. And that's why they don't want us using privacy cryptocurrencies and stuff like that, because that removes the control from them. And so we need the money, so people that are actually being funded from in the pharmaceutical and the, astronomers, whatever, they're going to just toe the line and believe what they believe because they keep getting these grants, they keep getting paid. As soon as they step out of line, they're broke. Their families, their kids are poor, and that freaks people up. And you got YouTube channels that have millions of views. They're making $100,000 plus a month on ad revenue. They can't make a video about the truth, and they get demonetized, and their entire life goes away, and they start crying. Okay, so it's all controlling people like that. And then the deep state side, the Nephilim, whatever, they don't need money because they could go, you know what? I need something that's going to cost $1 billion, and from whatever, they just type in a computer and they type $1 billion, and $1 billion appears out of nowhere. It's just fictional digits, and so they just make money. They don't need. I don't even necessarily believe in the black budget, right? Where they're taking our tax dollars and using it for stuff. NASA gets $80 million a day. I don't think NASA gets $5,000 a day. Okay. But they don't need money. The people that control the money can just type in numbers and they got whatever they need.
Yeah. Although Russia's saying that we might not have enough paper to keep printing out of debt at this point. So I don't know. Maybe they'll have to go to that digital system where they have to, we can be turned on and off. And that goes, it kind of segues into the prophecy topic a little bit if you want, because I believe that the thing that they just jabbed everybody with, an Operation Warp Speed, is Operation War on the Seed. I think the symbolism is a 666, a forehead symbol, and an instrument of your mind and soul, Antakarana, and a instrument of your, or a reference to your upraised hand in praise. So it's basically a reference to 666 and the mark of the beast right there in the official Warp Speed logo in Hebrew. That's the catch. You got to decode the symbolism. And just like everybody knows the monster drink is 666, it's right there on the Operation Warp Speed too.
Right.
Yeah. So that modern deep state right there, that's all you need to see right there. They're still operating, and they're still operating according to exactly what God told us was going to happen, biblical prophecy. And in fact, if you look into the Moderna patents here, I'm not going to go too much into it, but just to verify and validate what I said, people can go to my site and check out the Mark of the Beast article. But the actual patent claims to take out God's name, Yahweh, written on every cell of your body, Yahweh, numerically, and put in 666 numerically, right where his name used to be. This is done through it turns the ATCG into the ATCCCG on the polynucleotide chains. I forget what the term is. I'm not a geneticist, forgive me, but this is all broken down, and it's right there on the Moderna patent on my article called Mark of the Beast at thesarapayum.com. So you can go find it if you want.
This is the Space Force logo. Flip it upside down. It's Baphomet. Mm-hmm. Even with the star, everything. And anybody that says this is just a coincidence is lost in the matrix. Lost.
I want to inject. I believe that Space Force was built to stop, or try to stop, to fight Jesus on the second coming. There's no such thing as space. Why do they need a Space Force?
Right. And did you see this? This was a while ago on the space shuttle. They were the International Space Station. They were showing some stuff. Is this the one where they flip? Hold on, I think this is the one.
There's so many. They drown. They flip.
Yeah. So and the 666s are everywhere. But there's one where they flip. I thought I had that one where they flip and their shirts say 666. Wait, was it 666 or there was something else? It was something crazy.
You just saw something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they use all these satanic symbols, right? And and then the number of the 666s, this is one a lot of people say this is not true. Like this is a little Freemasonic, if you ask me. And then all of the 666s are too many. I mean, just one is all you really need. If you look at 6 times 6 times 600, circumference of the earth, 0.666 inches of curvature, 66,600 miles per hour.
I love the images. They're so good.
Yeah. So why? I mean, how the hell can that be going on? And it just goes on and on and on. I mean, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but the amount of 666s, it's amazing they were able to create a system that actually worked with those numbers. I think there's something supernatural about how these numbers come to play.
It's a spell. I mean, it's a spell. And honestly, these things, the things that are directing them, and I'll give you some specific examples, but the things that are directing them are like beyond us in IQ 2000 off the charts. These fallen angel entities exist. And we can look at like Jack Parsons, for example, with no actual rocket science or any actual scientific training. And he became the father of modern rocketry after doing sex magic ritual communes in the desert. And then we get Hillary Clinton 9 months later, by the way. And it was the same thing with Aleister Crowley, the godfather of modern witchcraft, really, in many ways, with Thelema and Theosophy. And he was 9 months later after his Babylon working, or I'm sorry, Amalanthra working, I believe it was called. In his case, Parsons was Babylon, misspelled. But in his Amalanthra work, 9 months later, Barbara Bush.
So all of these 666s, they're signs. They're letting us know what. So I'm not a gambler. I'm not a big gambler. But if I'm going somewhere where there's a casino, I like to play roulette. And the fact that I know that the numbers, when you add them up, all the numbers on the wheel equals 666. Does that make me a bad person? Am I going to be judged for that?
I did not notice that, but that is interesting to note. It's everywhere, isn't it? Because the people in power really are, and they're sort of giving each other a wink. It's part of their religion. Let's
talk about the sex magic. This was the first picture that Elon Musk gave us of Earth with sex. Now, there's some spell here. There's something. I thought they were just being like, let's just stick it in their faces and be perverted, but it's beyond that. And you look at, SpaceX versus Blue Origin. I mean,
I know what happened there.
What?
I think NASA had like a bad week, or somebody called out in the artist department, which they're not very good anyway, and they just went to Disney that week to get it faked. And they just had the same people that did the Disney movies make the fake globe that time. So they love this sex stuff in the movies and clouds, everything.
I mean, when you look at all of their stuff, now this could just be, maybe I'm just being perverted here, but
I don't know, man.
It's on purpose. It's on purpose. It's on
the
purpose.
Phallus symbol. Right. I can explain that, by the way.
And this one, every time they show Jeff Bezos' rocket, which is the one that really looks like a penis, they always have this motion going on. Like the cameraman's got Tourette's. Now
that's funny.
Yeah, but not on SpaceX, just on Blue Origin. Blue Origin.
This is where we get our Christmas tree from. The symbolism is the same. It goes back to Nimrod when he was killed, and his wife and mother, Semiramis, who basically said that an evergreen tree sprung up overnight. And this is where we get not only the Christmas tree, but all of this this phallic reference all over the world. We have Capitol buildings, symbols, the stuff that you're showing there. There's a phallic obsession, and it's not just who has the biggest, PP wins, but it's actually a reference back to a specific penis, which is that of Nimrod, which it goes back to the Osiris legend where he was chopped into pieces and such and lost his member. But they're basically talking about sort of bringing him back. It's a resurrection prophecy. Christmas and the Yule log ritual is the Nimrod resurrection ritual. If you bow before the Christmas tree and you do the Yule log ritual, he's supposed to appear and give you gifts. He was shown with a goat. Modern Santa is shown with a reindeer, but otherwise it's the same thing.
Isn't there some Bible verse about not bringing a tree into your house to die?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I
Great.
forget the exact one, but it talks about how they have no power, but the pagans cut them down and adorn them with jewels. I have an article that goes into it. I think it's Leviticus or Jeremiah. I forget which one.
Fun.
Yeah.
So
People don't know. They don't know
Yeah.
The world that we're in, and it's completely and wholly controlled by the God of this world, according to Jesus, Satan.
Because you don't know and because you don't believe doesn't mean it's not true. It just means you're uninformed. So
yeah, and if you want to move up in the world, you have to be part of one of their religious secret society circles. Like Freemasons won't accept you if you're an atheist. They consider you to be too stupid.
Amazing. So when you say you believe in prophecy, so what's going to happen in 2024? Dustin, give me the heads up.
Well, so basically, if you look at the book of Revelation and all of the specific signs that are happening, including the celestial stuff, you're better at this than I am, but you can check out the woman in the stars. That already happened a couple of years ago. But basically, you're seeing red alert from every sort of end times sign that there is, except for the two witnesses, arguably. So everything else is happening right now, from the Euphrates River draining, etc. All of these highly specific signs that were written thousands of years ago, all at once right now, as the mark of the beasts attempted, at least in their symbolism, and their genetic sciences are corrupting all flesh, as in the days of Noah. So you're sort of seeing everything that the book talked about play out. And I'm also going to mention that there is a lot of reference to a specific war between the Nephilim and mankind. And it goes from Genesis 3:15, when God promised us a war between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. Genesis 6, when the fallen angels made the seed of the serpent giants and they started to rule over and cannibalize people, all the way up until when they get much smaller in the days of Goliath, etc. And then all the way on until modern time, when they just look like normal people. They're not actually that big anymore, but they're still following this evil, satanic, anti-God religion. And their religion is to do all of these horrible things that we were just talking about there. So in terms of prophecy, you could look at like the Gog and Magog Ezekiel stuff, where it talks about the people coming up against the land of unwalled villages. That's America. America was in prophecy in Leviticus 26:18, specifically by the math, exactly down to the year 1776. So is the UK, same prophecy, Leviticus 26:18. 1801. So by the math, according to the times when the tribes were conquered by the Assyrians. So America's Manasseh, and UK is Ephraim of Scripture. I mean, it's right all there in the prophecy. 100% of the time it comes true.
So 2024, what's going to happen? Am I going to be standing here talking to you next year this time? Or is it going to be insanity?
As a journalist, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that there is a famine and a massive immigration issue. So there's going to be a whole lot of hungry, angry people that barely speak your language coming soon.
They're already
from what
here.
I can tell you from what I can tell you about the deep state and what they're planning to do geopolitically and such, everything that they think everything is going according to their plan, except for nobody trusts them anymore. However, in terms of what's about to happen, I believe that we are entering the Great Tribulation, where believers that actually follow the fundamentals of the Bible will be beheaded for their belief system. There will be great persecution, and the son of perdition, the so-called Antichrist, is about to reveal himself. And I believe that the D10 nations are the 10 horns about to take power from the G7.
Would the Antichrist that's about to reveal himself name rhyme with McGoon?
No, it would sound a lot like a thump.
Okay, I was making.
Yeah, I believe
making a joke.
I believe
anti flat earth joke.
No, I believe that Trump has at least is trying to check off all the boxes, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for that. I always do. I used to support him. I was his biggest champion for a long time until he started.
What? He's not going to save us? He's not the savior?
No, he's not the savior. He might actually be the other guy who's now saying, I am the chosen one, and all this other nonsense. So he's the one who gave us Operation Warp Speed with the 666 symbolism for the mind control and the hand and all that.
And he's the one that warp speeded the 5 A, B, C, D, E, F next letter across the country.
Yeah. So there's a lot of bad things that happened there on his watch. Great speeches. I agree with most of what he said, not most of what he did. Isn't that true of most politicians?
Yeah.
So we're there again. It's just a bigger level than normal, and that's exactly what the Bible talked about. However, there are some specific things he hasn't done yet. I could be wrong about him. I'm willing to admit that, but he does seem to be trying to check the boxes.
Interesting.
So I think we're entering a bad time next year, one way or another.
Well, it's going to be an interesting time for sure, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Some people see things like, "My God, that was horrible," and other people look at the same thing, "Oh, that was amazing."
Well, we're going to win. It's going to be similar to what recently happened in France with and I have no problem with Islam. I see what's happening right now, and whether you like what's happening or not on either side, it's going to create a lot of problems for the West. And terrorism is going to go through the roof, and they're going to hate the West for what's happening. So basically, we're about to see what happened in France when that kid was arrested, when he should have been arrested, but then the rest of the Muslims started to riot and chop people's heads off and take victims and stuff in the street.
So, the elite have Agenda 2030, and there's a rumor that they upped it to 2025 because things are falling apart, maybe. And so do you see now, like, comparing the world right now to 2019, it's massively different. When do you see the next big issue? Whether it's the famine, whether it's war, whether it's when do you see that kicking in to the normie people that are just going to their jobs and watching football still and have no idea what's going on? When do you see that happening? Is that happening the end of this year? Is it happening next year? 2025.
I think that very soon you're going to need their big thing is the digital currency system, because as soon as they get the central bank digital currencies ready, they're going to upload that software with the Chinese style social credit system, you be good or else, with the sort of already planned out and used and sort of pioneered in Europe and Israel and other places, the geo restriction vaccine passport systems that they're talking about using. All that's going to be uploaded immediately to everybody who took the jab. The hardware is already there. The software is coming. And then they're going to be required to use that to eat. And there won't be much food available soon. But you're already seeing this in cities where you have to sort of scan your palm in modern cities now in order to get food. Well, that's all going to be linked to the same system. Duh. And I mean, X or Twitter is, Elon is trying to make it happen and bring all of the systems together right now as it is. So it's clearly what they're trying to do.
People don't
believe that the deep state. Yeah, go ahead.
People don't believe that this technology exists. Remember, what was that movie with about pre-crime with what's his face?
Minority Report.
Minority Report. And I remember the scene where Tom Cruise walks into like a department store and the billboard goes, "Hey, Tom," whatever his name is, and it's like everything's talking to him. That's already here. It's already here. I mean, they can see in a sea of faces. They can identify everybody. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy. Well, you also have vigilantes tearing down all these spy cameras in the UK and other places that are being hailed as heroes locally and such. But it's here. The war is here. And as soon as they get that control mechanism, the hand is going to tighten, folks. And food is already going to be in short supply. And frankly, look, they've already destroyed, whether you believe it's a coincidence or not, they've destroyed over 100 places plus have been destroyed, coincidentally, food manufacturing and distribution centers in America alone in the last year. We are being targeted for famine, and it is coming soon.
Yep. Well, I think that
it's hard to,
I think that we shouldn't lay down and just say prophecy's coming. I think that everybody should just do their part and find.
No, that's journalism talking.
Yeah,
that's journalism talking. So, prophecy says the deep state is dead, I think, within the next 4 years, but that's a different topic.
Okay, interesting. All right. Well, anything you want to wrap it up with? We're reaching the top of the hour.
I'm good. I covered what I wanted to. I wish I could go into more detail on each specific fake occultist, so-called scientist that is the underpinning of our so-called modern science and globalist cosmology and such. But really, anybody who wants to test these things can go to the sarahpayam.com or your website. I mean, you have the best science on your website, frankly. And I think I have some great history or hidden history on my site that really explains the narrative. So
spell your site for people. What's your site?
It's the Sarah Payam. It's the SERAPEUM.com. It was the basement of the Library of Alexandria. It's all that survived from the great libraries burning and sacking. So it's sort of a hat tip to the great library and the knowledge lost.
knowledge hidden. I saw a short little YouTube short the other day, just yesterday, of in Tibet. They have it's like the Vatican basement, the library. It was like the warehouse in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it was all untranslated manuscripts, like 10 million of them, and they're just all, and they're just sitting there. They're all just in these, high.
That's treasure.
It's crazy, and nobody has access to them.
It's treasure, and they hoard all of these things. I mean, it's a wonder that we got access to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they didn't sort of sit on that as well. But these things, there's so much knowledge that slips through, or was already sort of documented 100 years ago before they sort of had the control they have now. Same thing with the science around cosmology, but it's the same thing with the archaeology, the anthropology, the etymology. If you start to look deep, you find this connection, and you even find all the evidences for this seed war and this tribe of giants that kept getting smaller, that were eating people, that had elongated skulls like cone heads. And they were found often around these megalithic structures we still can't build today, gigantic blocks of rock, many thousands of pounds, tons of rock we can't move today, and baby bones everywhere around altars.
It's unbelievable for many. It was, and a lot of truthers just don't want to look at it. And, I was one of them. I didn't laugh at flat earth. And then when I heard about all the child trafficking, I'm like, nah, I can't go there. I can't go there. And that's how they get away with it. Just in the dark.
I came the other way. I went through all of the evil stuff. And then I finally came to the light at the end.
How long ago did you become realizing the earth is not a spinning space ball?
So I started conspiracies at 17 years old. And then about 3 years ago, I really started to go down the cosmological rabbit hole.
About 3 years ago, you found on Earth.
I called that the last piece of the puzzle for me, but really I'd say that the
it's not the last. There's more. Yeah. It's crazier and crazier. Just before you go, what was, do you remember the one thing that made it click for you? What brought you to level, stationary, non-rotating, horizontal Earth?
I finally decided to debunk it, and I was watching one of those Rob Skiba series.
Rob Skiba
reasons, something top 10 reasons that we think the world is a globe, and he just tore them apart. And I realized that it's all fake, and they're faking it for a reason.
Yeah.
By number 6, I was in.
So there you go, Rob Skiba. Nice.
Yeah. He was a good man. I think he was taken out because he was too close to the seed war topic. But
very possible. Very, very possible. The satanic forces are everywhere. And that's another thing. A lot of people just don't believe that there's evil forces out there. They just don't believe. And that's how they get away with this. So keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and screw the haters. let them hate on their own. I don't care. And let's wake up the world.
Amen. Thank you, David, for having me on.
All right, man. Thanks, Dustin. See ya.
When people finally wake up to the truth that we do not live on a spinning ball, but rather a non-rotating level plane, and what is above, below and beyond, we still don't know, the first question they ask is, why the lie? Why the lie? So many people have said they believe the lie is because they don't want you to know who you really are, which we know that we are very powerful people. Our mind is very, very powerful. They want to keep resources from you. They want you to believe that unless we go and find other planets, we're going to run out of these resources. They want you to take you away from God, and so on and so forth. However, for me, I've come to the conclusion the biggest lie is because they want you to believe you live in a fictional world. Therefore, your fictional character, which is known as your straw man, will work in that world. So when we look at the word lawful and legal, there's a maxim of law that says he who creates it owns it. They've created a globe. You see, in the natural world, God's world, nature, I say God, whoever that is for you, it could be natural creation, sorts, whoever, but I'm just using God as a reference. You can't patent what is organic. They cannot take away and manipulate what is organic. They can create from it, but they cannot change it. So they cannot change the non-rotating level plane. But they need you to believe in them and not God. They need you to believe in fiction and not reality. So therefore they've created a globe. And on this globe, they control your mind. And on this globe, they register you. You see, they've created corporations. They've created birth certificates. They've registered your birth certificate to these corporations. A corporation is a dead entity. It's fake. It doesn't exist, just like the globe. They've made you believe you are living on a spinning ball on this world that doesn't exist. And they call it a globe. And on the globe, we have globalism. We have global warming. We have globalists. All of it doesn't exist. Global warming doesn't exist. It's all fake. You see, in this fake world, on this globe, we have digital currency. Doesn't exist. They create money from thin air. We have your straw man, which is there to become part of the commerce system, contract system, because you see, you as a person can't do business without your straw man. So they need to create a separate world, a legal world, where you can be your straw man. And in that world, they make you believe that you have to pay taxes. You have to give away your hard-earned money. In that world, they have taken away what God has naturally given you, which is dominion over the earth. They've taken away the land, air and water from you. And because you do not know where you live, you have given it to them. You have given up your right of dominion over what God naturally gave you. It's even in the Bible. And you have decided to live in a fictional world called the globe. And there, they own your mind. You see, in this fictional world, they register. Everything is registered, and you've registered your rights away. The rights that you were given from birth. You've registered your children away. You've registered your car away. They've taken away what is yours. And you are not ready to claim it back, because if you are not ready to realize that you have your own senses, your own eyes, your own feelings, which tell you we are not spinning. This is all a lie. Pull back the curtain and realize you live here and you own an equal share of the earth, and they've taken it away from you. In this fictional world, they create currency. They create birth certificates. They create contracts. They create your straw man. They create slavery. They've created slavery because you don't know who you are, because you don't even know where you live. Because he who creates it owns it. And if you truly believe you live on a spinning ball, then you are owned. You are owned because you've not centered yourself to your very own existence, that you are not spinning. Don't forget, in their world, you will own nothing and be happy. They're going to take everything away from you because they think they own you. Do you know why? Because they've made you sign everything over to them with their fake money, mortgages, fraudulent, globalism, fraudulent, global warming, fraudulent, doesn't exist. None of it exists. When are you going to realize none of this exists? It's all man-made. What is natural is nature. That cannot be touched. We are so close to collectively waking up. And when people say, well, it doesn't matter if the earth is flat or round, actually it's part of your spiritual awakening. Now here is something we should be concentrating on. As per God's law, until someone can bring the Creator into a court of law to provide first-hand testimony, which is cross-examinable, that one person has more authority than another, then logic and reason can only conclude we are all entitled to an equal benefit of the fruits of creation, and we are all equal under the law, and no one is above the law. When I say law, I mean small l, not man-made law. Each of us is gifted with our mind, with our own bodies and our conscience, to allow us to determine what is right from wrong. And hence, we can explore this reality as long as we do not cause harm, injury and loss. When you live in their fiction, in their legal world, you lose this. You lose this privilege to use your own mind and determine your own outcome. In the legal fiction, you are a slave. You are bound by legislation, acts and statutes. And you are told you're not allowed to drive on the roads unless you have register your car to a corporation and pay fines that you don't need for profit. Everything is for profit. In the legal world, even your birth certificate has created a for-profit person, which is you. They are making money on you in a world that does not exist, because nature is natural and no one can own it. But in the legal world, the fictional globe, they own you. That's why the globe is so important, because it doesn't exist. You don't exist in their world unless you want to, unless you choose to. When you are ready to wake up and come back to reality, when your parents, your mother or father used to say to you, you live in a fantasy world, come back to reality. Well, guess what? They created that fantasy world for you, and you are living in that world right now. And it is time for you to come back to reality and realize that you are not in their legal fiction. You are not a straw man. You are not a person. You are a living, breathing man or woman with the right to self-determination, and you need to grow up. You need to become an adult and start taking responsibility for your decisions, because if you don't, you will own nothing and apparently be happy. This period of time is about ascending and disclosure. We are mentally and spiritually ascending, and we need to disclose the lies and corruption to then manifest a new future, a fair and just one, where people begin to build communities rather than societies. But to do that, the first rule of manifestation is to know thyself, know who you truly are, where you truly belong, and know where you truly are going. Now remember, your silence means you are consenting. If you say nothing, that means you are happy to live like this. I'm not. I am not happy to live like this. I want a fair world with no wars, with equal shares of what is originally ours, God-given. This is why I speak up, and this is why it's so important to drop the globe, drop the legal fiction. You are not your birth certificate, you are not the straw man, you are not a court. You are a living, breathing man and woman. Protect yourself, wake up, know where you are and who you are.